battle between Phoenix Demon and White Tiger rages on. The former screeches out a warning to White Tiger, declaring that it will face the consequences for provoking him. Thinking of Yu, the god tree, the demon can only wonder why in the world he keeps this beast around. Standing across from him, White Tiger responds the only way it knows how, by continuously screeching that everyone will die. Where's the off button on this dude? Luckily for Phoenix Demon's sanity, Xiao Lan shows up at that exact moment and bitch slaps the fight right out of White Tiger. Ah, I think we found the button. After apologizing to Phoenix Demon for White Tiger's actions, Xiao Lan explains to the incensed bird that they're here to invite him to Misty Mountain. About 3 days later, up on the moon base, news of Phoenix Demon's successful recruitment is conveyed to Yu by Laurel. Shocked as he is by this incredibly positive development, the god tree still has much to do. Meanwhile, the forces that have been recruited to his cause gather together on Earth so they may be transported to the moon base. It's here that Phoenix Demon gets a proper gauge of just how incredible the beings joining Yu are. Right at that moment, a tear appears in front of them, seemingly ripping apart reality itself. Though Phoenix recognizes it as a void crevice, the great ape leader refers to it as the entrance to heaven and declares that the divine tree is waiting for them. I mean, bro's not wrong, but man, is he extra as hell. As everyone starts moving through and Phoenix wonders what exactly he's joined, we return to space and see the changes Yu has made to the moon. Namely, the massive lake or small ocean at this point covering a solid portion of the space rock. Unfortunately, the base is still a ways away from being perfect, with the trees beginning to wither despite the support of spirit energy. Just as he's pondering over this, Yu feels a jolt going through him, letting him know of his new recruit's arrival on the moon. As they come through, he answers King Gang's surprise question about the presence of oxygen up here. As soon as he finishes explaining how he's used an illusionary world to seal up the moon's atmosphere, Phoenix Demon strides over to him and the two meet properly. While the two exchange formalities, Phoenix takes note of how Yu looks every bit as eerie as he does divine in his newest state. At the same time, Yu is taking note of Phoenix's status window, which shows abilities no less impressive than those of Nine Tails. Once they're both done silently sizing each other up, Yu tells Phoenix that he can stay in the dimension of darkness from now on and leave their flying beasts. In response, Phoenix bows before Yu and declares that he shall only fight for the divine tree from here on out. Dang, we got bro blushing like a schoolgirl out here. Only a few days later, Phoenix finds himself stronger than ever before, having been soaking in the metamorphosis pool created by Yu using the essence of life itself. At the same time, elsewhere on the base, Yu oversees King Gang as he uses his power to construct buildings out of the moon's soil. This is a good thing too, because if he didn't, then King would waste all of his time just blazing Yu. I mean, look at that thing. With everyone else occupied, Yu finally has time to think about another important matter. Namely, the fruits he condensed while cultivating the light and dark attributes. Not only can they greatly enhance one's innate talent and transform them into an elemental life form, but everyone that's eaten once so far has become a transcendent fourth-order powerhouse at record speeds. The dilemmas Yu finds himself facing now is who to give these to, and the more he thinks about it, there are only two real choices. In regards to the dark elemental fruit, Lang Feng and Shadow Tiger are definitely the best candidates. For starters, Lang Feng's kindness and compassion towards the beasts of Misty Mountain have ensured the younger generation of beasts have a strong bond with him and his sister. At the same time, Shadow Tiger has extraordinary battle talent and is sure to become an incredible powerhouse with the fruit. Despite how powerful an ally Shadow Tiger will be, however, Yu can't just ignore all of Lang Feng's contributions. Frustrated by the difficulty of this decision and the unavoidable disappointment of whoever gets passed over, Yu decides to just hold onto the fruit for now and delay the matter. When in doubt, procrastinate. Moving on to the light elemental fruit, Yu is even more indecisive. With the sheer destructive power and speed of light granted by this fruit, who wouldn't want it? Thinking that over again, however, he has an idea. Yu turns towards Laurel and tells her to make an announcement for all the beasts of Misty Mountain. In exactly 3 months' time, a tournament will be held for all beasts below the 4th order. Not only will the winner receive the light elemental fruit, but the second place will even undergo baptism by him personally. Well, I didn't know they were religious like that, but cool. Moving closer to Laurel, Ziyu tells her to really emphasize the power of the light fruit and get as many participants as possible since he'll be watching too. In fact, she can go ahead and invite humans too since it'll be a good opportunity to recruit more of them. Soon after their conversation, Laurel uses a moonlight projection to announce the tournament all over Earth, sending the whole planet into an uproar over the prize for first place. Even those who don't fully understand what it means, like the Rat King and his subordinates, are beyond hyped up for the tournament. Everyone is making preparations in their own way, with Little Panda going to his older brother and clan to request his support. In return, he promises to split the fruit with him. At the same time, White Tiger is making a rousing speech to his own clan to get them to put in their all. Or rather, Xiaolan gives the speech after he just yells about death a bunch. Same thing. Even Sparky is determined to win this tournament and tells his underlings as much. Be it any of the clans, Ninetails, the Mist Beast, the Flying Chipmunks, or even the Bear Race, everyone wants that fruit. Well, except these dudes. They already know they don't stand a chance. With the light elemental fruit and its power being the utterly otherworldly phenomenon that it is, information about how it can allow the 3rd order beast or human to break through directly to 4th order spreads across the world faster than you can say, big tree. By the time 2 weeks have passed, news sources are covering the tournament to be held by Misty Mountain extensively and speculating over the authenticity of the first place prize. Then of course there are those who believe it too great an opportunity to pass up, such as the residents of the Long Mansion. Long the young master of the family, is in the middle of finishing up his training for the day when his grandfather shows up to speak about the upcoming tournament. Citing his grandson's status as undefeated among the 3rd orders, he asks if he thinks he can take first place. When his grandson sheepishly replies that they can't participate since they're not a part of Misty Mountain, the older man smacks the crap out of him. Damn, Boomer got hands. He angrily tells his grandson that they just have to join Misty Mountain then. Oh yeah, of course, because that's no big deal. The old man proceeds to go on a whole tirade about how tons of people are already flocking to Misty Mountain and he has to do the same no matter what. Even if he has to sign a contract, if he can just get that fruit and reach the 4th order, their family will be safe for another century. Calming down a little longer, his grandfather seriously tells him this is the only way for him to protect all he wishes to keep safe. His own expression now equally serious, but tells the old man he understands. Besides, he'd like to fight the other powerhouses either way. Lil Bro thinks he's Goku. Meanwhile, at a random observatory, a new hire gets told off by his boss for reporting that there's suddenly a forest and ocean on the moon. I mean, that's just ridiculous. How would that even happen? Back on the moon base, Laura reports to Ziyu that they've got about 2,000 participants lined up for the tournament already. Among those numbers, hundreds of them are outsiders in the 3rd order and have been settled in King Gang's immortal residing pavilion for now. Ziyu is decently surprised by the incredible number of participants, but it's a good thing since now they have a larger pool from which to pick Misty Mountain's full-time recruits. What Ziyu's most intrigued by right now is just where the humans will place in this tournament. And so another month passes by with more and more beasts arriving at Misty Mountain. Just like that, the day of the tournament has arrived and the contestants are gathering. In the hubbub of said gathering, the crowd is suddenly rendered speechless when they see a terrifyingly powerful red claw bear pulling up. Not only is the bear intimidating enough on its own, but atop its head rides a member of the 3-eyed race, formidable in their own right. As if the arrival of these 2 menaces wasn't bad enough for everyone else, the thunderous giant bear of Misty Mountain shows up on the scene next. As the 2 giant beasts lock eyes and enter a stare-off, the humans feel some relief, hoping that they'll wear each other down instead of them. Looks like that's totally going to happen too. Psych. Nope. They're best buds now. From there, the heavy hitters just keep coming in, from Shadow Tiger to White Two-Tailed Fox and even a whole freaking Titan. Even Long-Er, confident as he originally was, now feels like he's completely out of his depth amidst these behemoths. Seeing the doubt in the young man's eyes, a hulking muscle-bound moron approaches and tries to bully him into forking over protection money. Unfortunately for him, he's severely overestimating his own standing in the rankings of power here. Something which Long-Er is moments away from showing him firsthand, only for the metaphorical bell to save him as a rip opens up in the air near them. As the tear widens before their very eyes, the tournament for the light fruit is finally at hand. Every last one of the hundreds of contestants gathered in the field watches in awe as the tear opens wider and wider, allowing the terrifying form of the massive purple python to emerge from it. A python, which the young human of the three-eyed race recognizes all too well. On the other hand, everyone else, the actual titan included, mistakenly believes the serpent to be a supreme titan. Fully believing this due to the python's sheer size, said actual titan kneels before him, referring to him as senior. Seeing the snake's confusion at being addressed in such a way, the titan explains that he's from an impure bloodline that just recently awakened, and that's probably why he doesn't recognize him. Upon hearing this, Yu, the true entity bearing the python's visage, decides to play along with the titan's beliefs since his awakened divinity is a pretty good ability that could be useful. Dude's got absolutely zero shame. Having made this decision, Yu tells the titan that he's entrenched on the other side of the world. As such, if the titan has any problems, he can go ahead and talk to God Tree since the python and he are close friends. Yeah, that's an understatement. With that seed for a future alliance sound, Yu turns to King Gang and gives the order for the tournament site to be prepared. Almost as soon as those words leave his maw, King Gang is at work, shifting the very earth around at such speed that the gathered contestants are thrown on their behinds. Only the Triclops maintains enough balance to see what's actually happening, and it nearly throws him on his ass too from sheer surprise. The clearing they all gathered in know virtually the entire forest they were just in has been flattened and transformed into a several-mile-wide battlefield. Almighty Pushu. With the stage set, Yu announces to all present that the first round shall now commence. He goes on to give everyone a recap of the current situation. Could have sworn that was my job, but alright, Chief. With the powerhouses of all races gathered here at Misty Mountain's first grand event, only the top 108 contestants will receive a prize, with each rank getting something better than that below. Of these 108, the top 20 will also be granted an audience with the Divine Tree himself. And finally, what everyone is here for in the first place, the light elemental fruit shall go solely to the champion. From Long-Er to Fog Pikachu, everyone is emboldened by the reminder of what's at stake. Yu goes on to announce the format of the tournament. In this first round, they will all be assessed and only 1,000 of them will qualify to continue onwards. From that point on, they will have a series of duels until the numbers are whittled down to the top 108. And then finally, the champion shall be crowned from among those strongest few. With that, his piece has been said, and he leaves the first round in the capable hands of Bull Demon. Do those count as hands? Hooves maybe. With the reins now in his hooves, Bull Demon tells the contestants that all they have to do to qualify in this first round is be among the first 1,000 to reach him on the other side of the arena. And of course, this has to be done within a set time limit as well, as displayed by the giant hourglass King Gang summons. Across the field, sentiments are varied, while the avians, quadrupeds, and more powerful beasts are brimming with confidence. The humans and little panda's little posse already know they're done for. The second Bull Demon calls out the qualifiers beginning. Everyone dashes forward at their top speeds, leaping over each other, blocking the way and doing anything else they can do to get an edge. As for Long Hair and Muscle Man, human legs only go so fast. Speaking of Muscle Man, you know who else only goes so fast? Little Panda. What? Were you expecting something else? Luckily for the ones lagging behind, they're not at the back of the pack for too long as Yu instructs Bull Demon to activate his gravity field. Just like that, the arena turns into a knockoff of King K's planet, and everyone present is brought crashing down to the ground under their own weight. With the field's gravity increased tenfold, all but the strongest beasts and humans are left to literally eat dust on the ground. Despite this, however, Bull Demon is fairly impressed by just how many of the beasts are able to endure his gravity in the end. In fact, even some of the humans are getting through it, surpassing all expectations of them. The human is determined to make his grandpa proud and bounds back with this opportunity, as are little Panda and his brother, making full use of being four-legged. Unfortunately for them, that means all the other quadrupeds are just as unaffected, as seen when Shadow Tiger zooms past along with the other feline beasts. Pretty soon, the few humans still on their feet notice that it's not just the tigers, but the gorillas as well that are all but unaffected by the gravity increase. Right in the middle of this realization, they suddenly notice that the sky has gone dark above them. In reality, however, they've simply been eclipsed by a massive tortoise that's also competing. Sure, just throw anything in there, I guess. The tortoise doesn't get to shine for long though, as it's eclipsed to an even larger degree by the Titan, who doesn't even need to put much effort into this round. Long Air and Muscle Man are only spurred on by the disparity in their capability, however, and push themselves to keep up with the Titan. Meanwhile, Ziyu has been observing them all and decides that the challenge of this round is a bit too easy. At his command, Bull Demon doesn't just increase the gravity, but doubles it, now making for a field that's 20 times normal gravity. For all those who were already having trouble before, this increase is the final nail in the coffin as they collapse and spurt blood. Even many of the beasts suffer the same fate, unable to withstand the new gravitational field. However, the standouts from before continue to give it their all, Long Air and Little Panda in particular, pushing well beyond their limits to keep going. It's at this point that Ziyu notices some new contestants who've gone under the radar so far. Despite having the unassuming form of a simple boar, the beast he identifies as an unnamed blood raven has some incredibly interesting and unique abilities. Not only is it formed by the fusion of countless blood ravens, but it can even split into them and absorb the power of any that dies. On the complete opposite end of the subtlety spectrum, there's even a gigantic lava colossal beast and a sea beast that's evolved to become amphibious. In addition to those, the King Kong race is having a pretty easy time overcoming Bull Demon's gravity increase as well. As for the beasts of Misty Mountain, well, they refuse to back down and let these randos win, so they continue pushing their limits. King Gang can't help but praise the beasts for their performance, but Ziyu's attention has already shifted to yet another contestant. Surprisingly enough, the gold-spotted swallowtail butterfly, a light elemental beast, has joined this race as well. Unfortunately, he's forced to shift his focus away from the tournament upon the arrival of none other than Ziyu, who's been scouting around the void's perimeter. True to what Ziyu is weary of, Ziyu reports that he sensed an unknown creature of immense power about to invade. Ziyu's eyes go wide upon hearing this, and he starts pondering on the potential strength of this invader. Despite how powerful he knows Ziyu to be, he can't help but worry based on his shaken state just from sensing this new being. Before he can voice his doubts, however, Ziyu himself speaks up, asking Ziyu to let him proceed alone. Though he's still concerned, Ziyu decides to have faith in his friend and lets him go on. As Xialian leaves, the God Tree can't help but worry even more, knowing only that they don't know what kind of monsters lie in the void. Unable to silence the voice in his head, he dons his serpent root form and follows after Xialian, completely unaware of the horrific visage watching from afar. While Ziyu goes after Xialian, the tournament's qualifier round is quickly coming to an end. As Bull Demon watches on dutifully, the King Kong race's contestants are the first to break through the gravity field and reach him, securing their positions going forward. Impressed as he is, Bull Demon admits he's not surprised they're the first to make it, though the others aren't too far behind either. Sure enough, Shadow Tiger and the other carnivorous cats are next to make it across the field, followed shortly by the great bears, the blood raven, the white two-tailed fox, and the swallowtail butterfly. And then of course there's the towering Titan, but nobody had any doubts of his success. Still, in the gravitational field, Long is one of the only humans left standing, and he can't help but worry that the beasts are going to snag all the qualifying spots. Between that and the time limit ticking down, he decides to use his trump card. Bringing his fingers up in a special hand sign, something within Long is suddenly unleashed, allowing him to fly across the field at speeds well beyond anything he's displayed so Bull Demon raises his voice and begins to make the announcement. However, with one final push that saps him of all his strength, Longer comes crashing out of the field and into the Great Bears. With this, he's actually made it to the finish line, only barely. The Bears are not happy right now. Lil Panda is equally exhausted, almost wishing he could withdraw from the tournament if this is how everything will be. Heedless of the woes of those two, Demon Bull makes the announcement that time is up and all those who aren't at the finish line are disqualified. They can leave, of course, but they're also welcome to stay and watch the rest of the tournament. But most importantly, it's now time for the second round. Tears of relief and exertion streaming down his face, Longer confusedly asks if they're not going to get any time to rest at all. In response to that, Demon Bull just informs them that they can recover their strength instantly thanks to the essence of life they've got. With that explained, King Gang goes ahead and transforms the field yet again. And this time, it's a proper battle arena. We'd better hope Mr. Perfect Self doesn't sue for the design theft. Meanwhile, in the void, Z-Lion is engaged in battle with Godzilla. Well, no, it's more like a T-Rex with Godzilla powers. Overwhelmed by the beast's power, Z-Lion lets loose a green wind slash, only for the dinosaur to blow it away with a roar and nearly knock him out, followed by a swipe of his claws. Tears are ripped open in the void itself from the beast's attacks, leaving Z-Lion to attempt a sneak attack. Unfortunately for him, the dinosaur sees right through this and moves its S-Keys to trap him. Z-Lion isn't going out that easy though. With a quick use of void green wind slash, he shatters the spikes in just one lightning-quick move. With his body damaged, the kaiju-esque beast simply glares at Xylian and lets out a low, menacing roar. Where the hell is God Tree right now? Gotta admit though, Z-Lion is cooking right now. The beast completely outmaneuvers the Godzilla 180 and proceeds to gouge a solid chunk of flesh right out of its side. Despite the pain and bleeding this causes, however, Z-Lion quickly notices that the wound he opened is healing at a rapid speed. As long as this void beast possesses such a strong healing ability, the bleed effect of his slashes is pretty much useless. Huh, did somebody say Sakura? As Z-Lion tries to come up with a plan other than just ramming into the beast. Wild, the dinosaur lets loose another roar louder than any before it. Z-Lion is wholly unfazed though, still focused on coming up with a plan. And what a plan he has. He's going to evolve his sight and bleed skill, and then hit the dinosaur really hard. Just like that, Z-Lion goes Super Saiyan, releasing a massive burst of power and changing his physical form completely. His spine is spiked, his pincers sharper and more jagged, and his jaw full of flesh rending knives for teeth. This is his second battle form, Rose form. Yelling at the dinosaur, Z-Lion explains that this is a form that foregoes all defense for an overwhelming and unbeatable offense. With this, he dashes towards Godzilla Jr., intent on ending this in a flash. One slice right through the beast's torso, another across his head, another across his arms. One after the other, Z-Lion throws so many attacks of such high potency at the beast that even its high-speed healing can't keep up. And then, in the final move of his initial offensive, Z-Lion fires a series of shredding energy blasts, ruining the dinosaur's hide. Having taken more damage than likely ever before in its life, the dinosaur grits its jaws and furiously lets out a roar of utter hatred. Alongside said roar, it spits out a massive energy blast right at Xylian, only for the smaller beast to weave around it with ease. Full of rage, the dinosaur redoubles its efforts and fires off several more blasts in an attempt to catch Xylian off guard. Unfortunately for it, the bug-like beast is too fast for any of the attacks to even so much as graze him. After weaving cleanly through each and every one of the blasts, Z-Lion slashes through the dinosaur yet again. In blind panic, the beast lets loose a pair of incredibly fast death beams right out of its eyes, catching Z-Lion off guard with the absurdity of the move. With the smaller beast momentarily stunned, the dinosaur makes an attempt to crush Z-Lion with one of its hands. Unfortunately for the behemoth, as soon as he brings his palm down on his target, Z-Lion simply shreds through the hand, completely ruining it and freeing himself. With both beasts now at the edge of their stamina, they decide to fire everything they've got left into a final attack. As Xiaolian prepares what appears to be a slicing blast, the Void Beast charges a Gallic gun in its mouth. As soon as it's poured every last bit of its energy into the blast, the Void Beast fires its attack at Xiaolian, eclipsing him with its sheer size. However, even in this dire situation, Xiaolian remains calm and follows through with his plan. Within seconds, the seemingly tiny slice of energy he's amassed cuts right through the Void Beast's blast like a denji through a wet tissue. And not just the blast for that matter, but the Void Beast itself, as well as left cleaved completely in half. As the giant beast's torso and legs collapse onto the floor of the realm separately from each other, Xiaolian lands on top of it and takes a moment to breathe, believing the battle to be over. However, his moment of celebration is rudely interrupted when the Void Beast's eyes suddenly shoot wide open. Faster than Xiaolian can even think to react, the dinosaur has started regenerating its lower half. At this point, all Xiaolian can do is watch hopelessly. Luckily for him, that's all he needs to do, because the Void Beast's form is suddenly overtaken by an even larger and more menacing presence. As Xiaolian turns his eyes to the newcomer, he's treated to the sight of none other than Yu in his shadow root form, devouring the Void Beast. Looks like somebody skipped breakfast. As Yu wraps his massive serpent body around the Void Beast and chomps down on the creature's neck, the beast lets out a deafening roar of pain and anguish. In an attempt to free itself, the beast bites right back and tears into Yu's body. Between what he can feel happening as a result of this and the status window that has popped up, Yu is able to determine that the Void Beast is absorbing his spirit energy. This creature, the 17th king of the Void race, is known as Famine. Reacting quickly, Yu tightens the hold of his coiled body around Famine and warns it to give up what it's trying. With that, the dinosaur is subdued and Yu gets to work absorbing its nutrients and seizing its spirit energy. It's during this process, as Famine writhes in pain, that Yu receives the notification stating that he's gained the pinnacle absorption skill, allowing him to perfectly absorb all things. Are we sure he's not a Majin? Surprised by the ability, Yu can't help but be regretful over the loss of the Void Beast's immense potential. If anything, this creature is the best weapon not only for solo battles, but even for planetary exploration in the future. Simply deploying him on any world they may invade would be enough to completely shatter the foundations of that world. Hell, all he needs to do to get stronger is devour his heart's content rather than suffering hardships and cultivate it like normal. And this is only the 17th ranked king. His mind made up, Yu decides to suppress Famine's growth and has him sent to the dimension of Void in the 9 great dimensions. As the beast-battered body is transported away, Xiaolian wonders out loud just how powerful the 16 Void beasts ranked above Famine are going to be. On the other hand, Yu is more focused on the new ability his underling has awakened, namely, Blood Drinker. The ability to absorb both blood and spirit energy for sped-up growth and stamina recovery. For now, though, he keeps this to himself and simply tells Xiaolian that it's time to go since they've already wasted far too much time here. Back at the tournament site, each of the battle arenas constructed by King Gang is the site of an incredible battle. Currently at Arena 1, Thunder's giant bear has just triumphed over his rhinoceros opponent as declared by Smoke City's human who's refereeing. Elsewhere in the same massive arena, Longer faces a massive land-walking shark that attacks him with about a dozen tentacles. The young master of the Draconic clan is determined, however, and with a quick application of his Dragon Scales claw move, his opponent is taken down. While the ref is announcing his victory, Longer wipes away the sweat on his face and ponders on his progress so far. Though he's made it to the top 108, the opponents are only going to get stronger, and he's far from close to the higher ranks. Even the Triclops from the 3-eyed Divine race is only in the top 50, well above his own rank at 82nd. Now Longer may be having doubts about his chances, but the ones watching the tournament are quite impressed with his talent. Ninetales in particular thinking about how he hasn't even revealed his true power yet, one hidden within his body and is not his own. Almost as if he's reading Ninetales' mind, Old Demon tells him that he'll have to show his full strength one way or another now that the herd has been thinned to such a degree. Back down in the arena, steel veranda claims victory over its opponent while Long-er stands silently with an intense expression. Dude, come on. You are not so soon. Next up, the referee announces the bout between two titanic beings, one of them quite literally. It's Shadow Tiger versus Titan. From where they're watching, King Dang expresses his surprise over two of the top 10 fighting each other so early on. Bull Demon is quick to point out that it's not that early for them though, as they've both already won 24 rounds. On the other hand, Long-er is just grateful that those two insanely strong beasts are up against each other instead of him. Yep, he definitely just jinxed it. Right as Long-er finishes that thought, his next opponent walks up behind him. The White Fox ranked first and the current champion of the tournament. Yup, called it. Off to the side, Lil Panda is first to voice everyone's thoughts. Long is cooked. Ninetales, on the other hand, believes this will be a highly interesting fight. Gotta save the good stuff for last though, so have a look at the rest of the fights first. Over at the site of Shadow Tiger and Titan's battle, the latter has already suffered some extensive damage when he finds his hand locked clean off by Shadow Tiger during an attempted slam. As Titan stumbles backward from the shock and pain of this development, Shadow Tiger summons forth more tigers, and they charge up some incredibly powerful blasts. Within seconds, those blasts are let loose and hit Titan with the force of a dozen bombs, completely blowing off one side of his face. With all the sauce of someone who knows they've won, Shadow Tiger stalks over Titan's torso and holds another blast point blank to his face with a stone-cold warning to surrender. At that point, Titan has no option but to admit defeat, lest his core be destroyed as well. And so Bull Demon announces Shadow Tiger's victory, almost sounding disappointed by the predictable outcome. I mean, dang, if you want drama, just go on Twitter, or X. I don't know, whatever we call it nowadays. At the same time, Swallowtail Butterfly fires multiple destructive beams at its own opponent, Lil Panda's brother. A move that ends the battle instantly, cementing the Butterfly's position at rank 2 for the tournament. Watching from the sidelines, Sparky makes a smug comment about how Panda and his brothers are just too weak, unlike his subordinates. Yeah, he just jinxed it too. Or his subordinates suck. Sure enough, totally not Pikachu makes short work of Sparky's underlings, sending him into a pit of depression he won't soon recover from. While Little Panda dodges the call from his brother because of his loss, the Rat Gang is busy celebrating their leader's triumph. This is soon brought to a halt, however, as a massive explosion of energy brings everyone's attention to one particular fight. Over on Arena 7, beaten and bloody Long-er is just barely hanging by a thread in his fight against White Fox. Watching from above, Ninetales mentions how the beast is more than strong enough to break through the Fourth Order by now, but refuses to do so for some reason. Even her brother, watching from afar, wonders why she won't just end this already and stop toying with this poor human. Back in the arena, White Fox yells at Long-er to surrender already since he can't win. This, however, just ignites Long-er's resolve, having never been one to give up. First Sasuke, now Naruto. Bro's stealing the whole cast's flow right now. Finally revealing the power he's kept hidden until now, Long-er speaks to the spectral avatar of a dragon emerging from within him. Now addressing White Fox, he admits that this is an ability he didn't really want to use, but he has no other choice. What was it White Fox said? That he's going to lose? Well, he wouldn't be so sure of that. All at once, the realization of what's been hidden within Long-er strikes both White Fox and Shadow Dragon. At some point in time, Long-er has swallowed a dragon egg. Just as Long-er's aura is exploding with power, Godtree finally returns to the tournament, his gargantuan form appearing on the outskirts of the arenas. While everyone shifts their focus onto him, Zyu's own attention is fully caught by Long-er's bombastic transformation. Why? It's a cool word. Understanding what he's watching instantly, Zyu comments that he'd never have expected Long to be carrying the bloodline of a dragon, though he does wonder how he even came to possess such a thing. Down on the battlefield, White Fox is beyond surprised by just how high Long's spiritual power is rising, having nearly hit the peak of Third Order and showing no signs of stopping. To Determined as she is not to lose, White Fox is woefully unprepared for Long-Er to suddenly appear right inside her guard, arm outstretched in the form of a talon for an explosive attack. Shadow Dragon, Bull Demon, and King Gang are all equally shocked by the speed of Long-Er's approach, though Ninetales maintains his composure as he observes. As the arena is enveloped in the explosion resulting from Long-Er's attack, Yu thinks back on the possible origins of the human's powers. Years ago, humanity obtained 4 dragon eggs during their first encounter with the black dragon in Australia. Of those 4, one was incubated and became the 10th land beast in Misty Mountain. One was damaged and devoured by Emperor Crocodile. One was absorbed by a beast from the Freedom Federation. And finally, the 4th was taken away by the Midnight Sun Empire but was stolen by an unknown faction that jumped them in transit. As Long-Er pins White Fox down by the throat and fires a point-blank dragon roar, the fox just barely manages to get out of the way before firing back with a blast of her own. This, however, is deflected in its entirety by Long-Er's now transformed arm, shocking White Fox. What shocks her even more, though, is when Long-Er once again dashes into her guard faster than she can catch and slams her away. In the viewing area, the other humans are rooted in place out of disbelief and some fear, wondering if Long-Er is even human to begin with. At the same time, Yu can sense that there's more than just dragon blood at play here. Long-Er has dragon spirit mixed into his very soul itself, which explains his insane strength. Over with the Misty Mountain top brass, Shadow Dragon is practically making a fool of himself and cheering on Long-Er, having already claimed him as a relative. Clout chaser much. Back with the 2 in question, White Fox and Long-Er enter into a classic beam clash as each of their war attacks impact each other and compete for dominance. Eventually, the whole exchange explodes, leveling the very arena they were fighting in and sending the spectators flying. From the dust, debris, and smoke kicked up from this explosion, what emerges no longer even slightly resembles Long-Er. Yu is the first to recognize this new humanoid dragon form as the result of dragonification, which Long-Er clearly can't fully control. Sure enough, as the dragon-human hybrid flies towards White Fox on wings of pure flame, his internal conversation with the dragon within reveals that he's on a time limit. One which he's pushing with every second he remains in this form. Unwilling to give up on victory, however, he charges forward to exchange blows with White Fox directly, trading punches one after the other. Eventually, Long-Er goes beyond his limit and starts losing his mind to his own power, no longer seeing anything but the desire to win. Equally determined not to lose, however, White Fox matches his insanity as they both charge at each other once more, determined to kill the other with his final attack. Luckily for them, Yu chooses this moment to intervene, restraining Long-Er and several of his tentacle root thingies. Not wanting to lose such a promising talent like this, he opens up a massive void rift to restrain Long-Er more securely. Meanwhile, Bull Demon declares that White Fox has won since the final exchange God Tree interfered with would have killed Long-Er. For his part, Long-Er has completely lost all sense of reasoning at this point, lashing out against Yu like a wild animal. Yu pays that no mind, though, fully immersed in the process of reversing Long-Er's current state and improving his dragonification. After balancing out his spirit energy with his own power, Yu administers one more thing to the young man before deeming his work to be done. With that, he releases Long-Er, who crashes down to the ruined arena with the force of a small meteor. By the time the dust from that crash clears up, the being that emerges is no longer fully dragon or human. With his 2 sides now in sync, Long-Er emerges as a true hybrid. As soon as Long-Er emerges in this new form, the crowd goes wild, with King Gang and the humans struck with jealousy as much as disbelief over the divine tree actually stepping in to personally help someone. Then there's Little Panda, who instantly whipped out a phone and started filming. Freaking goblin. The moment Long-Er is able to make sense of what happened and his surroundings, he kneels before the divine tree, thanking him earnestly for what he's done. In response, Yu tells him that he's even reinforced his dragon form scales with the steel element heart, which will take his defense to a whole new level. All he has to say to the boy now is to stay in Misty Mountain and train hard to make sure he Having been listening in on this conversation, the jealousy of the other contestants is magnified even further since the Steel Element Heart's metallization ability is a highly sought-after one. Between Long Ur's dragon blood and soul stacked on top of metallic scales that can grow stronger still, his potential is practically limitless now. Might as well call him a Cyan. Also, Lang Feng's sister's crushing on him massively, so that's nice. Sucks to be Lang Feng though. Now at long last, the final battle of the tournament has arrived, with White Fox pitted against the golden swallowtail butterfly. King Gang personally descends to the arena floor for the final bout as he announces that the fate of the light elemental fruit rests on this battle's outcome. However, before they can even begin preparing for it, White Fox declares that she's forfeiting, shocking many. Deciding to elaborate, she explains that if the Divine Tree hadn't interfered, there's no way to know what the outcome of her fight with Long there would have been. As such, she has no interest in carrying on and concedes both the victory in the light elemental fruit to Swallowtail Butterfly. And so, without the need for a final battle, the Swallowtail Butterfly is declared the champion of the Misty Mountain Tournament and granted the light fruit. Something which even the butterfly itself is quite surprised by, since she hasn't exactly had to fight very tough opponents for the most part. Hercule Hu. Yuziu is no less surprised, admitting that he never would have expected her to win this. But with her being a light attribute beast to begin with, it's probably for the best, since the fruit will benefit her more than most. As for the other fruit, she hadn't told anyone of Xiu calls on Shadow Tiger to praise his performance and grants him the dark elemental fruit. A reward that the beast is more than grateful for. Glad we can't actually hear him. Rule the deaf in me. Turning towards Lang Feng, Xiu apologizes for not giving him the darkness fruit and promises to make it up to him next time, though the human is far from upset in the first place. Ha, healthy workplace. That's how you know this is fiction. With everything wrapped up, Xiu makes one final announcement to those present. There is one more fruit in his possession, and to determine who gets it, there will be more competitions like this one in the future. To that end, he urges them all to hone their skills and remember that only the strong are welcome in Misty Mountain. And so the tournament is over, the winners are rewarded, injured or healed in the spirit pool, and the losers are punished by their leaders. No, really, Sparky's putting his folks through the grinder. Meanwhile, Not Pikachu's embarrassed about being kind of a fraud, and Lil Panda's facing his own demons. They're called debt collectors, or family, whichever you prefer. Other than that though, all is peaceful in the Misty Mountains now, and Xiu is free to train in the Void Depths. There he practices his Willow Leaf, Steel Flying Blade move, ripping tears into the void with every use. A feat only possible after fusing it with the power of the Steel Element, enhancing it with the path of Vanguard. Not only that, if Xiu just keeps pouring enough spirit energy into the move, it can turn into an ocean's worth of destruction hurtling toward any target. In this case, the Void. Luckily for the now panicking God Tree, the Void begins to mend itself, meaning he doesn't have to worry about destroying it. Even so, he resolves to find a better way to control his move. Little by little, Xiu manages to hone his skills to the point that his mastery over both the Willow Leaf Blade and his vines has increased significantly. In fact, when it comes to the Willow Leaf Blades, he can now control the exact trajectory of each individual blade he fires. Between the mental link he has with them and the power increase they've had, launching them now makes it look like the sky's full of stars. In line with that change in the visuals of the move, Xiu decides to rename it from Willow Leaf Flying Blades to Dazzling Galaxy. Dang, I wanted to clown it, but that goes hard. As he settles on the new name, Xiu then receives a notification informing him that his Path of Vanguard Mastery has hit a full 7%, surpassing his previous level by a decent bit. With that, he decides he's done enough for the day. At the same time, light years away from Earth and its moon, on a nigh inhospitable planet of barren wastelands, a dark creature with several legs suddenly stops in its tracks. Suddenly, without any warning, the spider-like being opens its fish-like mouth and vomits out a smooth white ball. Pick a lame man, that's one animal too many. Then, equally sudden in its occurrence, is the disgustingly visceral emergence of a strange red insectoid beast from the ball. Man, I wanted to eat after this. Phew. to unearth and destroy the being responsible for killing Gujin. Meanwhile, deep in the Misty Mountains, we see a familiar face as the mysterious guardian who previously wore Yu's Yu, the coming threat, walks through the woods. Before she gets far, Ninetales appears to block her path and angrily tells her this path is forbidden. As the two enter a stare down, Ninetales is overwhelmed by the spirit energy radiating off this woman, having only seen something similar before from the Divine Tree himself. Within moments, Ninetales is joined by the other guardians of Misty Mountain as Sparky and White Tiger show up to surround the woman. In an attempt to be diplomatic first, she tells them she's not here to cause trouble and that they should calm down. However, as Sparky is quick to point out, she has no right to say that while radiating the amount of killing intent that she has. Still as uneasy as ever over her aura, Ninetales demands that she state her reasons for being here. Meanwhile, the idiot, who is probably that reason, is laughing his keiser off in outer space, overjoyed over finally being able to fly. Soaring among the stars atop his dragon, he can't help but feel smug over how much faster he is now than even humanity's fastest ships. Almost as if it was designed just for him, Zyu spots a meteor shower not far from him and decides to test out another power. With a single roar of his dragon, the resulting blast is enough to reduce the entire meteor cluster to space dust. With the Azure Dragon form now a transcendent fifth order and imbued with the strength of steel, his defenses are through the roof as well, with the ability to absorb even elemental attacks and add them to his own power. On top of that, the tree and steel cores rest within his dragon's claws, the former brimming with life force and the latter converting that life into unyielding metal. So basically, he's adamantium now. In terms of attack, defense, and ability, Zyu is now leagues beyond how strong he was against darkness. Unfortunately, that strength is of no use to Earth at that moment as a void tear opens up in the night sky. From within the tear comes an insectoid arm, pulling it open and allowing a veritable army of red beasts to come through. Blissfully unaware of what's happening on Earth, Yuzu is focused on making the defense of the dragon scales even stronger and decides to return to the void for that purpose. There he will calm his heart and cultivate, an act that may take quite a while, though he's sure his allies and subordinates can handle anything that happens on Earth during that time. Man, people really love jinxing themselves in this world. Far removed from both parties that are soon to face each other, a certain military base within a certain country on Earth is currently in the process of testing a technological breakthrough in weaponry, guided spirit missiles. As soon as the commander calls for one to be fired, the missile is let loose and sent on a collision course with a random patch of desert. There, the missile detonates successfully, turning that section and only that section of the desert into a smooth crater. With this, the researchers back at the base watching via a live feed start celebrating their efforts a success. These extra destructive missiles with spirit energy and their control units are capable of utterly eviscerating a specific beast. They're fired on without harming any surrounding structures. Unfortunately for them, their celebrations are cut short when a void tier suddenly opens directly above the base. At first, they suspect this is an act of the Divine Tree. However, one of the suits realizes the color of the tier is different from the ones made by the tree. Before he can warn anyone else of this, however, the red insectoid beasts, which I'm just gonna call blood bugs from now on, have emerged and started raining hell down on them. Even as the command center sends out a level 1 alert calling for everyone to enter combat state. The bugs vaporize their department, leaving the ground forces utterly disorganized. One after the other, the tanks, choppers, and APCs all come together to blast the blood bugs to smithereens, but it's all to no avail. Might be because they're 3D and a 2D manhwa. Seriously, what are those? Even the rockets fired by the choppers are tanked with no effort, followed by return fire from the blood bugs in the form of a massive energy beam, which reduces the military base to a pile of rubble altogether. In a desperate attempt and with his final breath, the single soldier left clinging to life manages to fire off one of their new missiles. Unfortunately, this too is a fruitless effort as the blood bug in front catches the weapon like a chew toy and completely tanks its explosion. What the hell are these things made of? Not long after that disaster, a similar void tear opens up in the woods of Misty further reaches of Misty Mountain's woods, the great ape and others sense the sudden arrival of several life forms stronger than anything that should be around here. White tiger, Sparky, lizard, Rex, fang-masked elephant, and shadow dragon race to the site of these energy signatures, while Ninetales is already there. Riding atop a boar, Mini Wukong's terrified expression says everything that his allies are feeling. Up on the moon, Laurel reports this unprecedented development of the beasts residing there, explaining that each one of these new enemies possesses the strength of a peak transcendent fourth order. Despite their concern, Black Dragon tries to reassure everyone with a reminder that God Tree will have a way to handle this. Unfortunately for them, that isn't something they can wait for once Laurel reports that he's been missing for 3 whole days with no sign of reappearing. Hearing that Ninetales and the other Misty Mountain beasts are the only ones available on Earth doesn't set anyone's mind at ease either. Wanting to go help out, but without Ziyu's abilities, even the Phoenix Demon isn't capable of flying back to Earth. Even worse, you can feel the power of these invaders, and it's exactly the same as what Darkness was like when he appeared. Down on Earth, the Bloodbugs instantly get to work setting their surroundings ablaze, opposed only by a little raccoon hedgehog. The little guy's Thunder Dive is woefully ineffective against the insanely hard shell of the Bloodbugs, however, leaving it wounded and vulnerable. From there, it's easier than ever for the Bloodbug to slam Raccoon Dog into the earth, cratering it and injuring RD quite a bit. Even so, the little menace stands his ground as the Bloodbugs fire a concentrated energy beam right at it. Wait, why though? Those seem like overkill. Luckily for RD, Mini Wukong shows up at the last second to deflect the blast with his pole, saving the creature's life. No, not that pole, you pervs. With the idiot trio all together, the Bloodbugs stand no chance. Of losing, that is. The terrified 3 are saved from an early grave by the arrival of Lizard Rex and Masked Mammoth, the latter of whom holds one bug hostage as Sparky shows up to slice it into pieces. And finally, descending from the skies above like a savior sent from the heavens, Ninetales shows himself, wreathed in flames and rage as he warns the bugs not to do anything reckless. With his piece said, the fox unleashes a torrent of flames upon the bugs, boiling them all from the inside out and leaving them dead on the ground. His forces defeated, the leader of the Bloodbugs finally shows up as well. Known simply as Xeno's commander, he is a transcendent 5th order, donning 4 wings and a shell pattern different from the rest. As Ninetales watches on, Xeno slowly descends closer to the few surviving Bloodbugs on the ground and asks them a single question, his eye ablaze with the flames of fury. Who killed Gugit? While Xenos is conversing with his men, bugs, Shadow Dragon finally makes it to the battlefield, pulling up right next to Ninetales. Rooted in place, the fox simply tells the dragon to be on guard. Watching from a little further away, Sparky makes the obvious statement that this newcomer must be the invaders' leader, because we totally needed that. Thanks, Captain O. As for the leader in question, Xenos simply floats in place, arms crossed as he surveys all those present tonight to see which of them might be his target. With a single look, he can tell that the slayer of Gugit isn't one of the normal beasts. It isn't Sparky. It isn't even Ninetales for that matter. In fact, he doesn't sense enemy spirit energy that he would consider powerful out here. Having come to that somewhat disappointing conclusion, Xenos summons dozens more Bloodbugs from a massive void tier and declares that he'll look for their target himself. Elsewhere in the spirit energy detection office, the entire control room is abuzz with panicked conversation as they watch the video of Boar's military base being annihilated 3 full hours ago. Based on the appearance of the Bloodbugs in the footage, it doesn't take a genius to realize they're somehow related to Darkness. The second that connection is made, they start sending out alerts and searching for where else they may be. Thanks to that, they're able to pinpoint pretty quickly the location of the Bloodbugs that have gathered in the Huaxi region, particularly in the Bayou Canyon, where several beasts are forced to flee from the massive energy beams being shot into the woods. Among them, Feng Lang, Lang Yu, and Xiao Lan are caught in the metaphorical crossfire, unable to figure out just what the hell is going on. Feng Lang does know that Ninetales and the others are fighting the main force of these enemies right now, but little else. bloodbug before they can even begin to follow or argue with those orders. Uncaring of their concerns, the bloodbug shoots an energy beam right at them, which Feng is quick to block and dissipate with his own power. Making full use of the precious few seconds he's bought them with that move, Xiao Lan uses her eyes of treasure to spot the weak point of these creatures, the back of the head. Wasting no time, she tells Lang Yu to attack that spot, making an opening for her to do just that by baiting the bug. Even after reaching a weak spot, however, Lang Yu is unable to even put a crack in the ridiculously hard shell of this bloodbug. Her brother is quick to follow her attempt with his own and he sees some success, but even his attack, insanely powerful and showy as it is, only just breaks through the outer shell. A fact that Xiao Lan tries to convey to them, but is too late as the bug has already thrown off both siblings. While flying away from the bloodbug, Lang Yu screams in frustration about where the hell they're supposed to find a blade big enough to behead this thing. Oh, reverse jinx for once maybe. The moment these words leave her mouth and the bloodbug opens its own, a massive blade reaches into its throat through its mouth, holding it up in the air like a ragdoll. Let's effing go. After landing a safe distance away, the siblings and Xiao Lan watch as the praying mantis queen slices the bloodbug's head clean off its body. At the same time, Lang Feng mentions that it is here as well. Friggin' pronoun game again. Who is it? Oh, it's the Great Ape King dude. Cool. Before we continue with our regularly scheduled action, have a break and grab a snack while we turn back the clock a little. Heading back to the face-off between Ninetales and the mysterious Guardian, we watch as she warns them of certain creatures coming to attack this place soon. Seeing Ninetales' questioning gaze, she tells her that all of them need to start preparing to face these beasts ASAP or else. Finally chiming in from behind her, Sparky asks the woman just what kind of beasts she's talking about when she says creatures. Her answer to that question is one that would be laughable if it weren't as frightening as it is. Aliens. The bloodbugs that they now face for the very survival of Misty Mountain are aliens. Back to the present, Lang Feng has already grasped the severity of the current situation and recognizes just how valuable Xiao Lan's eyes are. With that in mind, he sends her off to warn the others about the bloodbug's weak spot. Meanwhile, at the site of the initial conflict, RD and Mini Wukong are putting up a surprisingly good fight against the bloodbugs, as are all the other beasts. From their joint efforts to Sparky's quick slashes to Lizard Rex, Masked Mammoth, and Shadow Dragon's overwhelmingly explosive power, the alien invaders all seem to be beaten and wiped out. Emboldened by the apparent victory for their side, Ninetales bellows at Xenos that he's the only one left and demands to know who sent him. Rather than answering her question though, the alien leader just warns the beasts to watch their backs. Because rising up from their ruined states, the bloodbugs everyone just worked so hard to dispatch are right back on their feet and ready for more. Okay, you can't be zombies and aliens. That's just unfair. While Sparky and the others wonder how the fallen enemies have been revived, Xenos decides to enter the fray and face Ninetales himself, summoning a trident of light in one of his 4 arms. With a single slash of said weapon, the bloodbug leader carves a trench into the earth which spans across almost all of the Misty Mountains. Ninetales is still in the middle of dodging that move when Xenos appears right above her, ready for more. Meanwhile, all of the revived bloodbugs come together to unleash a joint blast so powerful it sends everyone flying, which convinces Sparky they're even stronger than before their near-death experience. Ah, so these guys are the Saiyans then. One of the bloodbugs tries to catch him off guard while he's midair, but Sparky's not having any of that and slices its head and left arm clean off the rest of its body. In a shocking display, however, the bloodbug continues to attack even in its main state, making Sparky wonder if these creatures are just puppets of some sort. Before he can think any further, Sparky, Masked Mammoth, and the Idiot Trio bear witness to dozens of bloodbugs coming together for yet another combined blast explosion. Man, these guys are spamming damn it. Off in the distance, the mysterious Guardian observes silently, her thoughts as much of a secret as everything else about her. On the battlefield itself, Xiao Lan and White Tiger finally arrive, the latter shooting through one of the bloodbugs to break their formation, while the former now They'd all have to fully destroy the cores in their enemies' bodies or else they'll just keep coming back from whatever's thrown at them. Hacks. Freaking hacks. Flying above the battlefield on White Tiger's back, Xiao Lan elaborates and tells everyone that their best bet is to completely annihilate the bloodbug's bodies. Just taking chunks out of them isn't guaranteed to work, because they can freely move their cores around inside of themselves. Excuse me? I take it back, this is beyond hacks even. Rather than being discouraged by this news, Sparky puts on an air of bravado and claims that just makes things simpler. Without wasting another moment, everyone gets to work shredding their enemies to, well, shreds. Sparky uses strength amplification and quintuple strike to dice one of the bugs up, while Lizard Rex completely vaporizes another with a point-blank wave of scorching flames. Queen Mantis goes in with a similar move to quintuple strike. Masked Mammoth flattens his target with stomps all over the bug's body, and Hal the Idiot Trio straight up annoys theirs to death. Little by little, Misty Mountain's forces are turning the tide of the battle. The other battle is a different matter altogether though. Up in the sky above everyone else, Ninetales is constantly being pushed on the defensive as Xenos incessantly uses energy blasts to wear her down. Unnoticed by him, Xiao Lan is circling their battle from even higher up and looking him over for any weaknesses. Weirdly enough, Xenos is the only bloodbug so far with no core in his body. Despite her saying nothing to give it away, Xenos somehow realizes what's happening and recognizes the danger of leaving someone like Xiao Lan alive. Taking advantage of the bloodbug commander's focus being diverted, Ninetales blasts him with a firestorm, but this is once again ineffective against the Fifth Order. Just as Xenos is belittling the attack, Ninetales reveals her own form, now clad in the strongest flames she's capable of producing. Although the enemy commander is forced to admit that this is a more impressive show, and his focus is still on Xiao Lan and his desire to kill her here and now. With that in mind, he summons a pair of bloodbugs immediately behind Ninetales and leaves her to deal with them in the meantime. Having recognized that Xenos intends to come for her, Xiao Lan tries to have White Tiger flee upwards into the sky, but that attempt ends in failure as Xenos suddenly appears in front of them. However, just as suddenly as he appeared, he's also smacked away by the palm of none other than the Great Ape. As the white-furred warrior takes Xenos crashing into the ground, it seems as though it may be able to pose a threat to Xenos. This too, however, is proven to be a false hope as soon as the dust and debris clear up. For what is revealed is not a triumphant ape, but a maimed one, with Xenos now hoisting up his severed arm like a trophy, just as much as a warning. Adding insult to injury, Xenos even patronizes the Great Ape with some condescending praise about leaving a scar on his body. Right when it seems like it's over for Great Ape, Mei Wukong comes flying in with a surprising show of bravery, slamming his weapon into Xenos' arm and causing cracks to form all over it. His single eye widened with shock over this damage. Xenos realizes that the stick this little monkey wields is far from ordinary. Unwilling to leave such a threat unchecked, he takes his focus off Great Ape and moves to kill Mei Wukong. Yet again, however, he's caught off guard as Great Ape rises and grabs him from behind, refusing to let his underling be harmed. Unfortunately, this is little more than an inconvenience for Xenos, who simply fires a blast backward, blowing clean through half of Great Ape's stomach. Down by an arm and a chunk of his torso, Great Ape still stands proud, refusing to give the enemy even an inch. With that attitude and those injuries, I might have to call him All Might. Raising a hand into the air above him, Xenos suddenly erects a barrier around himself and those in his immediate surroundings, ensuring that none can interrupt what he has decided will be Great Ape's final moments. Realizing his intentions before any of the others, Sparky rushes to try and break through the barrier, but his efforts are for naught. Xenos even takes his time relishing in this fact, gloating to all present about how even a transcendent Fifth Order wouldn't be able to break his barrier, so it's impossible for them. And yet despite this, he summons more and more blood bugs from within his void tears, sending them to keep all the other beasts occupied. Ninetales, Shadow Dragon, the Idiot Trio, and all the other beasts desperately try to break through to where Great Ape is, with Ninetales yelling for them all to save White Ape in a panic. Instead, they're all forced to witness as the King of Monkeys tries to make one last stand, only for his second arm to be lopped off as well. Irreversibly maimed, the great white ape is now defenseless as Xenos prepares to end his life. Outside the barrier, White Tiger tries desperately to break through once more, but can't even make a scratch. Meanwhile, on the ground, the entirety of the monkey clan has arrived in a furious stampede, refusing to let their leader be defeated like this. In their rage, they fail to heed Shellland's warning and throw themselves at the defensive line of bloodbugs, blind to the strange glow they're all emitting. Sure enough, just moments later, the bloodbugs self-destruct, taking out almost half of the monkey clan with them and gutting that faction of Misty Mountain for the foreseeable future. One after the other, each of the mountain's beasts is overwhelmed by the exploding bloodbugs, and the battlefield turns into what looks like the aftermath of a nuke. Of everyone who was blown away, Mei Wukong just so happens to be the closest to the barrier, as well as the first to rise back up. Using his pole as a crutch, he just barely brings himself to his feet and casts a glance in the direction of the barrier. However, the sight he then bears witness to is one that incites pure anguish, rage, and despair within the little beast. Standing amidst the flaming hellscape, a shadow cast on his hulking form by the fire, and Xenos glares at him with his single eye, all while dragging the dead form of the great white ape by the scalp. Mei Wukong charges forward, his staff swinging wildly as he unleashes his rage on Xenos. The massive, one-eyed alien barely reacts, a smirk playing across his face as he effortlessly evades the attacks. It's the kind of smirk that's so smug it deserves its own villain backstory. Someone get this guy a mirror. In the same moment, the beasts of Misty Mountain launch an assault on Xenos' exposed back. Their claws and fangs aim for weak points, but Xenos counters with terrifying strength. Grabbing two beasts in his massive hands, he crushes them without hesitation. Before Xenos can finish his counterattack, Mei Wukong's staff strikes true, hitting Xenos' massive eye. The force of the blow causes a visible crack to form, catching Xenos completely off guard. His body stumbles backward as he clutches at his eye, pain etched across his face. The beast sees this moment to press their advantage. Ninetails, cloaked in flames, takes the lead. Transforming into her physique of flames, she launches a fiery blast that slams into Xenos, triggering a massive explosion. Ninetails isn't just fighting, she's auditioning for the next big anime opening theme. Someone cue the music, and the dust settles. Xenos remains standing, his body seemingly unharmed save for the crack in his eye. The realization dawns on him, the damage caused by Mei Wukong's staff cannot be regenerated. This fact visibly shakes him, a flicker of fear crossing his face. Misinterpreting Xenos' hesitation, Ninetails growls, "Don't even think about running from here alive." Her fiery form radiates anger as she stares down the alien. Xenos, regaining his composure, scoffs, "Run! And you?" he sneers, masking his unease. "No one here can stop me if I wish to leave. But what I'm looking for isn't here. So I'll return, next time, with an army. This isn't even my final form." Xenos turns and begins to retreat, his movements swift and deliberate. The Misty Mountain warriors watch in frustration as he opens a glowing portal. Shellland and White Tiger let out roars of anger, but neither can react in time to stop him. Ninetails growls in frustration, powerless to prevent his escape. As Xenos steps into the portal, he pauses to deliver a final taunt, his smirk returning, before the words can leave his mouth. A dark tentacle shoots out of nowhere. It wraps around Xenos' body with crushing force, cutting off his retreat and silencing him instantly. The bloodbug leader's body contorts grotesquely before going limp, his attempt at escape thwarted. Plot armor? Nah. Plot tentacle. On the ground, Sparky and the other beasts of Misty Mountain are stunned by the sudden surge of spirit energy. It's an overwhelming presence, and they instinctively recognize its source. Their eyes shift upward, filled with awe and trepidation. Yuzu, the god tree, steps through his own portal, his towering form radiating an aura of unparalleled strength. The battlefield shifts under the weight of his power, Xenos could react, Zyu struck. With the fury of a vengeful god, his tendrils lashed out, slamming Xenos into the ground. Xenos roared in pain, clutching at the gaping wound in his chest as Zyu's roots hovered menacingly above him. This power can only be. Xenos spat, his voice laced with both fear and fury. Zyu didn't respond with words. Instead, one of his roots shot forward, piercing Xenos' massive eye with brutal precision. The force of the attack sent a shockwave that went through the battlefield, leaving no doubt as to Zyu's dominance. If intimidation was a sport, Zyu just won gold. Xenos writhed in agony, his once imposing form reduced to desperation. Yet even in his weakened state, the Bloodbug leader refused to surrender. "You think killing me will stop what's coming?" he sneered, blood dripping from his shattered eye. "The great Emperor is already on his way. Nothing you do will change that." Zyu tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. Then, with a flick of his laser beam, he silenced Xenos for good. The Bloodbug leader's body crumpled, lifeless, to the ground. The battlefield grew eerily quiet as the weight of Zyu's power settled into the survivors. Somewhere, a game over screen is playing for Xenos. Turning his attention to the wounded, Zyu began to mend what could be saved. Meanwhile, Mini Wukong knelt at the ape's side, tears streaming down his face. The weight of the king's seal in his hands felt unbearable. Zyu observed the young monkey in silence, recognizing the storm of guilt and grief within him. But there was no time for comfort, not yet. Nine Tails approached, her fiery form dimmed by exhaustion. "We've lost too many," she reported grimly. The ant and mantis armies had been decimated, the wild boars halved, and the white ape tribe nearly wiped out. Zyu's expression hardened. "Collect the intact corpses," he ordered. "Those I can, I will revive." But even his divine powers had limits. Those erased completely by Xenos' attacks were beyond saving. Unbeknownst to the survivors, Misty watched from the shadows, her presence a silent judgment of their readiness for what lay ahead. But she wasn't as unnoticed as she thought. Zyu's roots erupted from the ground, encircling her in a flash. One root morphed into a dragon's head, its voice a rumble of thunder. "Tell me what you know about the creatures and their master," Zyu demanded. Misty smirked, unimpressed by the display. "You want to confront the enemy now? They're far away," she said coolly. Her nonchalance didn't sit well with Zyu. He tightened his grip, his tendrils closing in. "Take me there," he commanded. With a resigned sigh, Misty relented. "You're not ready for this fight," she warned, but she obeyed. As she opened a portal to the unknown, Zyu turned to Nine Tails. "Lead in my absence," he said. Zyu and Misty hurtled through the vast emptiness of the cosmos, the desolate void stretching endlessly around them. Misty couldn't help but marvel at Zyu's power. Since their last encounter, it had grown exponentially, an almost incomprehensible level of strength radiating from him. As if to underline her thoughts, Zyu casually ripped open a void tear with a flick of his tendrils, plunging them through with ease. On the surface of Venus, the creature known as Veni, a twisted spider ant eel mutant, trudged through the wasteland. The Venusian mutant froze, its instincts screaming as an overwhelming presence descended upon the planet. The skies darkened, and Zyu's colossal form loomed above, his energy flaring like a beacon of divine wrath. Hovering in the air, Zyu's expression was calm, almost menacingly so, as he locked eyes with his target. Misty, barely clinging to Zyu's tendrils, noted how quickly they arrived. Interplanetary travel in less than a day. Eat your heart out, NASA. Below, Veni barely had a moment to register the impending threat before Zyu crashed down with an earth-shattering explosion. Dust and debris erupted into the air as Zyu's tendrils lashed out, anchoring him to the ground. He spoke, his voice quiet but filled with icy fury. "Killing my subordinates, your life is forfeit." Unbothered, Veni responded with eerie calm, acknowledging Zyu's pursuit. His tendrils lashed out in a flurry, forcing Veni to retaliate with his Vajra claw skill. Sparks flew as the two clashed, Zyu's unrelenting attacks pressing Veni further into the wasteland. The battle escalated. Crimson energy enveloped Veni, identifying him as a transcendent fifth-order mutant. The system stats projected his adaptability and offensive prowess, a deadly combination in the wasteland. Stats aside, Veni looks like the kind of boss that takes multiple raid parties to down. Zyu, unimpressed, unleashed his tempered flame feather skill. A searing wave of fire roared toward Veni, forcing the mutant to dodge. Even as Veni escaped the flames, Zyu's relentless roots chased after him, delivering blow after devastating blow. Veni retaliated by spitting hordes of blood bugs, swarming the battlefield in a desperate move. But Zyu remained unshaken with a chilling precision. He froze the minions in their tracks using his Ice Age skill, encasing them in glistening frost. Veni, now on the defensive, summoned his remaining strength for one final attack, the potent bomb. The explosion rocked the battlefield, its intensity momentarily obscuring Zyu with smoke and fire. Misty clung tightly, her eyes wide with concern. As the dust cleared, Zyu emerged completely unscathed, his expression colder than before. At this point, Veni's life choices were probably flashing before his eyes. Closing the distance in a heartbeat, Zyu grabbed Veni by the face, slamming him into the ground with a thunderous impact. The mutant coughed blood, strength rapidly fading. Veni's mangled body hurtled across the Venusian wasteland, sent flying by Yuzu's devastating blast. As the dust settled, Zyu took a moment to assess the battlefield. Then, with an ominous glow, his form began to shift. Towering over the scorched terrain, Zyu's new form emerged, a tree-based mech bristling with elemental spheres hovering ominously behind him. Final boss energy unlocked. Someone cue the battle music. Without hesitation, Zyu unleashed a barrage of attacks, each sphere firing off devastating blasts that lit up the desolate skies. The raw power left Misty, watching from a safe distance, clutching his feathers in disbelief. The explosions tore into Veni's battered form, shaking the very ground. Honestly, the planet deserves hazard pay at this point. Amid the chaos, Zyu didn't let up. He closed in on Veni, grabbing the Venusian mutant's broken body and ripping off two of its limbs with terrifying ease. Veni's shrieks echoed across the wasteland, a haunting melody of agony and defiance. The mutilated beast demanded to know why Zyu was tormenting him. Zyu's gaze burned with disdain as he coldly replied, "The pain you inflicted on White Ape is the pain you will now endure." His tendrils lashed out in a storm, shredding Veni's body into an unrecognizable mess. If Veni had a Yelp profile, it'd be 0 stars. Customer service was non-existent, lifting what little remained of the mutant with a single tendril. Zyu interrogated him. "Is the giant red eye I saw connected to you? Why did you start this war with Earth?" Even in his broken state, Veni began to laugh, his voice a mix of pain and mockery. He taunted Zyu, claiming the red eye belonged to the great emperor, and warning that Zyu's actions had sealed his fate. Frustrated but composed, Zyu slammed Veni into the ground with enough force to make the planet tremble. Veni, now barely conscious, revealed one final detail. Zyu's slaying of Guget, the great emperor's pawn on Earth, had enraged the emperor. Even now, the great emperor was speeding across the universe, intent on vengeance. Emboldened by this revelation, Veni cackled hysterically, proclaiming that Zyu's doom was inevitable, but Zyu had heard enough. With a deafening roar, he unleashed a final blast that vaporized Veni entirely. The attack carved a massive chasm into the planet's surface, leaving no trace of the Venusian mutant. As silence fell over the battlefield, Zyu turned his attention to Misty. Floating nearby, she observed the carnage with a mix of awe and unease. Zyu demanded to know if the great emperor was the same threat she had once warned him about. When Misty confirmed it, he pressed further. Who was Guget? Misty's answer chilled him. confusion and questions clouding Xiu's mind, Misty urged him to leave the planet, promising to explain more later. Before they could depart, however, a glowing blue crystal emerged from Benny's remains. Misty immediately identified it as a star core, a rare artifact formed from a planet's accumulated energy. With time, it could evolve into a world's heart capable of sustaining life. Recognizing its immense value, Xiu seized the crystal with a tendril, his expression a mix of intrigue and determination. It's like finding a legendary drop after a raid boss fight. Back on Earth, the fallen beasts of Misty Mountain were recovering in Xiu's healing pods. Among them, many Wukong sat silently before the great white ape's pod, grief and guilt weighing heavily on him. His friends looked on from a distance, whispering their concerns about how long he'd been sitting there. Lost in his thoughts, many Wukong replayed every moment of sacrifice that had brought them to this point. Breaking the somber silence, Xiu strode into view, his towering form a stark reminder of their recent battles. With a casual flick, he tossed the severed head of the Venusian mutant to the ground before many Wukong. His voice, calm but commanding, cut through the air. The white ape tribe has been avenged. Yu stood beside many Wukong, the two of them gazing solemnly at the fallen white ape king. Xiu's voice, calm and steady, reassured the little ape that the king's injuries were not his fault. The king's duty is to protect his people, Xiu said. But many Wukong's eyes remained fixed on the ground. After a pause, he revealed the king's seal, the divine mark of leadership, entrusted to him just before the king had fallen silent. "I'm not worthy," he muttered. "I'm not strong enough to carry this." Somewhere, an inspirational training montage is just waiting to happen. Behind them, the other monkeys exchanged worried glances. But before despair could settle in, many Wukong clenched his fists and marched toward the severed head of the Venusian youth. With unwavering resolve, he slammed his own forehead into it. Blood trickled down his face as he declared, "I'll become stronger. Stronger than anyone. Strong enough to be king. Peak headstrong behavior, literally." As many Wukong walked away, his friends followed in stunned silence, their awe palpable. Xiu watched, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The little ape was growing up, not physically, and certainly in spirit. Still, a growth spurt wouldn't hurt. Turning his focus elsewhere, Xiu approached Misty, his demeanor turning cold. The air seemed to thicken as he demanded answers. Misty, always the enigma, feigned ignorance. But Xiu wasn't having it. His tendrils lashed out, surrounding her in a suffocating grip. "Tell me the truth," he said, his voice like a blade. "How do you know the names of enemies no one else does?" Caught in his grasp, Misty finally relented. She explained that they could foresee the future, though their knowledge was limited. Intrigued but suspicious, Xiu pressed her further. "Who are they, and who are you?" he demanded. Slowly, Misty revealed the truth. She was a departed spirit inhabiting her current form. Her confession came with grim warnings. The great Emperor's forces would overrun Earth, leaving Misty Mountain as the final bastion. And even that would fall. Their only hope lay in gathering allies from beyond Earth. Xiu's expression darkened as he absorbed her words. The situation was more dire than he had imagined. When Misty finished, Xiu's frustration boiled over. "Why should I trust you?" he asked. Misty's reply was simple, "Believe me or don't. It won't change the fact that the great Emperor's army is coming." Her words gave Xiu pause. He asked one last question. "What kind of future have you seen?" Misty's expression grew grim. She described a planet split apart, its destruction absolute. The warning lingered as she opened a dimensional tear, disappearing with a promise to return. Left alone, Xiu stood in silence, his mind racing. There was no time to waste. Opening a void tear of his own, he rushed to the moon base. Worrell greeted him, but Xiu barely acknowledged her, speeding past with urgency. In the research labs, Yule, the mummified master of magnetism, was in the middle of an experiment. Surrounded by scientists, channeled his magnetic energy. The machine hummed with growing intensity. The energy built to a crescendo, shooting out of an outlet and forming a massive wormhole outside the lab. Yule's body glowed with power as he pushed himself to the limit, surrounding himself in a magnetic sphere. Finally, he could give no more. He stepped back, watching as the siphon energy stabilized the wormhole. The shimmering portal stood as a gateway capable of transporting anything or anyone. The wormhole roared to life, a testament to the relentless efforts of the R&D department. Inside the moon base, scientists erupted into cheers, their hard work finally bearing fruit. At the base of the shimmering portal, Yule observed its unstable form with a calm but critical eye, a cosmic breakthrough held together with metaphorical duct tape. Unbeknownst to him, Zyu appeared silently behind him, his voice breaking the air with an approving comment on the experiment's partial success. Startled but composed, Yule immediately turned and dropped to one knee, saluting the divine tree with a hand to his chest. Zyu wasted no time, asking how long it would take to stabilize the wormhole fully. Yule's response, 2 years at the earliest, prompted a sharp reaction. The great emperor's arrival was imminent, and they had only 1 year. Zyu declared they had no choice but to cut the time down to 6 months. The suggestion left the scientists stunned. Outside, Yule posed the critical question. Why was Zyu so intent on developing space travel when he could already tear through the void and had access to the 9 great dimensions? Zyu explained with clarity for all to hear. The wormhole offered something he alone could not, the ability to instantly transport forces anywhere without depending on his presence. In battle, where he might be locked in combat with the enemy commander, having a stable transportation network was paramount. Yule nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Without argument, he promised to bring the world's elite researchers to the effort. Zyu, in turn, vowed to provide all the manpower and resources required. Their pact sealed, Yule rose, his resolve as strong as ever. Moments later, Phoenix Demon soared down to Zyu, his fiery presence impossible to ignore. He brought news of a new recruit, piquing Zyu's curiosity. The recruit, a transcendent third-order clone of the Blood Raven from the Misty Mountain Tournament, stood before them. Zyu's intrigue deepened as Phoenix Demon explained the plan by driving the original Blood Raven to the brink of death. His power, along with the swarm's collective strength, would flow into the strongest clone. This new Blood Raven would become an invaluable ally, capable of global surveillance through its cloning ability. Zyu mulled over the plan. It was bold, but the benefits were undeniable. He granted Phoenix Demon his blessing, watching as the fiery bird launched into the skies, heading toward Earth. Turning to the Blood Raven clone, Zyu asked why it didn't need to accompany the Phoenix Demon. The clone's stoic reply was simple. As long as the original was sufficiently harmed, its power would automatically transfer to the clone. Convenient, Zyu mused. Peak lazy genius vibes. On Earth, a group of farmers paused their work, their eyes wide as a massive swarm of blood ravens darkened the sky. The flock moved with deadly intent, descending upon a town and leaving nothing but devastation in its wake. Reports flooded the 10 Nations Alliance headquarters, detailing the complete destruction of the town's population and the deaths of the team sent to stop the ravens. Desperation gripped the Alliance as they struggled to find a way to counter the threat. Just as hope seemed lost, a new energy signature appeared on their radar. Moving at breakneck speed, it approached the Blood Ravens. The Alliance's live feed revealed a breathtaking sight. Phoenix Demon, the continent's second great beast, heading straight for the Blood Raven's nest. Reaching the nest, Phoenix Demon peered into the darkness, dozens of blood-red eyes glaring back at him. Without warning, an attack shot toward him, forcing the fiery bird to dodge. Emerging from the shadows, the original Blood Raven revealed itself, its grotesque appearance unsettling even to Phoenix Demon. This thing looks like it crawled out of a creepypasta superhit. For a brief, almost cinematic moment, the air between Blood Raven launches dozens of dark feather blasts while Phoenix Demon counters with a mouth beam so intense it could vaporize someone's hot takes on social media. Exposition time. The Blood Raven isn't just some random feathered menace. This thing wiped out all 100,000 citizens of Thousand Cave City, total population 0, and even the combined forces of the 10 nations and the Huaxia Federation couldn't take it down. So, yeah, it's kind of a big deal. Not that you know it from what happens next. Back to the action. Hudun, a human and void, arrives to assist against the Raven. But when she gets there, it's game over for Fraud Raven. Phoenix Demon has already pinned it down with a talon, the Raven barely clinging to life. Imagine showing up late to a boss fight only to find out someone else has soloed it. Ouch. Hudun, impressed by Phoenix Demon's display, showers him with praise. The fiery bird brushes it off, claiming he was just following orders. But before anyone can bask in the moment, the Blood Raven's body begins to glow with crimson energy. The clones scattered across the battlefield light up as well, their power converging and preparing to transfer to the Clone Raven back at Zhu's new base. Sure enough, at the base, Clone Raven starts to bask in its glow-up, reveling in the immense strength flowing into it. Even Zhu, usually calm and collected, gets caught up in the hype, cheering the Raven on to absorb the energy without letting the parent body's soul slip through. Nothing says team spirit like hyping up your bird buddy in a high-stakes power transfer. A battle of wills erupts between the main Blood Raven and its clone. Their spectral forms clash in a struggle unseen by others. The clone pleads with the parent to let go and allow the family to ascend to greater heights. The parent screeches in rage, demanding the clone give up his body instead. With a final, sorrowful farewell, the clone pulls away the last of the energy, severing its connection to the parent body. A crimson flare lights up the sky, briefly tinting the moon a deep red. That's not an ominous blood moon. Totally normal, right? The Undying Blood Raven, now reborn as a transcendent Fourth Order beast, reveals its new abilities, including a freaky eye in its mouth. Yeah, that's unsettling. But its most impressive skill allows it to sacrifice a clone to transfer all injuries, leaving the main body fully restored. Basically, it unlocked the get out of jail free card for battles. Zhu, ever the mentor, praises the Raven but cautions it to keep improving. As the Raven's new clones perch ominously on Zhu's branches, the Divine Tree takes on an even darker, more menacing aura. Little Panda catches sight of him and nearly jumps out of his fur. If someone doesn't Photoshop this into a horror movie poster, it's a missed opportunity. Just as the Raven departs, two figures approach Zhu, cloaked in intense spiritual energy. It's Spirit Butterfly and Shadow Tiger, both of whom have managed to fully absorb their elemental fruits in just a week. Even more shocking, they've broken through to the transcendent Fourth Order. Zhu nods in acknowledgement, adding two more powerful allies to his growing ranks. But despite his success in strengthening his forces, Zhu feels an inexplicable unease. The joy of building an army strong enough to face the great Emperor is absent, replaced by a gnawing sense of foreboding, almost as if in response to his thoughts. A single misshapen rock deep in the void of space begins to pulse with an eerie blue glow. Something is coming. Above the sprawling woods of Misty Mountain, three of its strongest members clash in a dazzling display of power. Spirit Butterfly, Shadow Tiger, and the Undying Blood Raven. Their battle is fierce and breathtaking, with each fighter showcasing their transcendent abilities. Off to the side, Little Panda and the Elephant Tusk Dragon. Let us see, watch the sparring match, engaged in their own kind of battle and debate. Who do you think will win? Little Panda asks, munching on some bamboo he probably didn't have permission to take. Laoshi, exuding the confidence of someone who clearly thinks they're the main character, replies, obviously, the Blood Raven. The thing's called Undying for a reason. Little Panda isn't having it. You're only the strongest when I'm not around, he declares, pointing an accusatory paw little panda continues hyping himself up. If self-delusion were a sport, panda's taking gold. Instead of shutting him down, Lao humors the little guy. "You were pretty impressive in GRC," he admits, earning a bright blush and a puffed-up chest from the panda. But just as little panda basks in this rare validation, he ruins it by asking, "So, could you pay off my debt to my brother?" Peak shamelessness unlocked. Meanwhile, in a shadowy cave somewhere on the moon, Misty stands before a massive severed head suspended by its unnervingly strong locks of hair. She whispers to him, promising freedom in a year. "Yeah? Misty, this isn't creepy at all. Totally normal behavior. Back on Earth, high above the clouds in Sky City, researchers examine the remains of Xenos. Their advanced tech can't make sense of the bloodbug leader's unique cellular structure, entirely alien to anything found on Earth. Meanwhile, Yule addresses the United Nations. With footage of Xenos and his minions playing on a big screen, he warns the gathered officials of the looming threat. Yule explains that even the weakest of the invaders were the transcendent Fourth Order, and Xenos was far stronger. Worse still, Xenos wasn't even the final boss. He was just a minion following orders from someone even more powerful. Earth getting clapped by the tutorial level is not a good look. The room erupts into nervous murmurs. Yule delivers Zyu's message. Humanity must prepare for war or face the same fate as before. But a few skeptical officials question Zyu's trustworthiness. Yule shuts them down without hesitation, declaring Zyu their best chance of survival. The meeting concludes with a sobering realization: the world isn't ready for what's coming. Far from Earth, in the secluded celestial mountains, two enigmatic beings observe the unfolding events. One, a strange, long-snouted creature, decides it's time to pay Misty Mountain a visit. Fingers crossed is bringing cookies and not chaos. Back on the moon base, Laurel briefs Zyu about the humans strengthening their military forces. Zyu nods approvingly, pleased that Yule's warning has sunk in. With the groundwork laid, Zyu decides it's time to focus on his own growth. Send a message to Nine Tails. He tells Laurel, the 9 great beasts and Lin Kuo will lead Misty Mountain in my absence. Laurel hesitates before asking, how long will you be gone? Zyu doesn't have an answer. His destination is the mysterious green planet, a place he's long intended to explore. When I return, I'll be stronger than ever, he promises. With that, Zyu departs, leaving Misty Mountain and Earth to brace for the battles ahead. After the Divine Tree's departure, Nine Tails stood watch over Misty Mountain, her gaze fixed on the starry sky. Somewhere out there, her master was on another quest for growth and strength. Meanwhile, after 2 exhausting weeks of non-stop travel, Yuzi finally arrived at the Green Planet. His excitement to break through to the transcendent 6th Order was palpable as he rushed toward the lush, vibrant world below, only to be slapped back by an invisible force field. Imagine traveling across the galaxy, hyped for your big moment, only to get gate-kept by the planet itself. Tough luck. Zyu? For days, Zyu probed the barrier encasing the Green Planet, searching for a weak spot. He could have blasted through it any time, but with the mental energy emanating from the barrier, that would have turned the entire planet against him in a heartbeat. So, after a painstakingly long process, he finally found a weak point, shattered the void, and squeezed through, but not without consequences. To avoid alerting the planet's inhabitants, Zyu had to regress to the transcendent 2nd Order, leaving him in a significantly weakened state. Bro basically had to nerf himself to sneak in. That's commitment. Even worse, his main body was still stuck outside, meaning he had another 2 weeks to wait before it could join him. Stuck in his reduced form, Zyu began scouting the unfamiliar terrain. During his exploration, he stumbled upon a scene straight out of fantasy epic. Lying on the forest floor was a purple-haired woman with antlers and the lower half of a deer. She was gravely injured, her breath shallow. Using the system, Zyu identified her as a transcendent 2nd Order druid. Intrigued prepared to help, Zyu hesitated. If she woke up and turned hostile, he'd be in trouble in his current state. Thinking quickly, he healed her wounds but made sure to secure her with tendrils, a decision that would soon backfire spectacularly. The classic better safe than sorry. Except it's Zyu, so of course it gets awkward. When the druid woke up, she immediately noticed her restraints. Her gaze darted to Zyu's humanoid form, and her expression turned from confusion to anger. What the hell are you? And why am I tied up? She demanded. Zyu tried to explain, insisting he healed her and wasn't an enemy. But her eyes narrowed the moment she saw his branches. You're with the ancient tree of life, aren't you? Hear her silence me, she accused before charging him headfirst. Lady, you just got healed. Maybe save the violence for later? Zyu restrained her again, this time with less patience. Her response? Tears. Lots of them. The druid broke down sobbing, wailing loudly enough to make Zyu wish he could disappear. Mortified by this scene, he hurriedly explained that he was from another planet and only came here to find allies. Imagine being a cosmic powerhouse and still getting guilt-tripped into oversharing. Unfortunately, I can relate to this. Once the tears subsided and the druid seemed to calm down, Zyu cautiously asked if she could share information about the planet. She agreed, but only after he released her. Reluctantly, he complied. Sometime after their initial meeting, Zyu was gathered a wealth of information about the green planet from the druid woman. He learns that the world boasts an incredible variety of races: elves, magic beasts, dwarves, and even a mighty dragon tribe numbering in the hundreds. Among these dragons, there are 3 pure-blooded dragon kings. Compared to the sparse dragon population on Earth, the sheer strength of this dragon tribe makes Zyu think they could become the most powerful battle force on the planet if he can subdue them. However, the most unexpected revelation is that this world recovered its spirit energy 10 full years earlier than Earth. And even more surprising, there's another sentient tree here, much like Zyu himself, but way more evil-looking. Imagine meeting your edgy doppelganger who listens to metal and only wears black. While Zyu mulls over this new information, the druid woman tells him she's leaving now that he's gotten what he wanted. Curious, Zyu asks where she's going, and she replies with a simple, cold answer: revenge. Intrigued by the idea of this world's races fighting each other, Zyu offers to help as thanks for the knowledge she shared. But the woman scoffs at his offer, pointing out his current weakened state as a transcendent second order like herself. More than a little annoyed at being dismissed so easily, Zyu taps into some of his recovering power, effortlessly raising himself to the peak of transcendent second order. Flexing on someone who just doubted you, chef's kiss. As for the druid woman, well, let's just call her Drusy. No particular reason. Anyway, Drusy is blown away by how casually Zyu boosted his magic power. Stunned, she asks him just who he is. Zyu calmly replies that he's a life form from Earth, the divine tree of Misty Mountain. He offers her a pact to become his apostle, and she'll gain immense power in return. Meanwhile, in a nearby village, chaos reigns. The attackers, horned beasts with the lower bodies of deer and wolves, are tearing through the settlement. Suddenly, a massive purple energy blast rips through their ranks, leaving one impaled wolf in its wake. The destruction escalates as a colossal arm crashes down from above, piloted by none other than Zyu, with tendrils thrashing and limbs smashing. He methodically crushes the invaders, all while noting their strange spirit energy. Zyu's basically a one-tree demolition crew. Midway through his rampage, Zyu is interrupted by arrows fired by 2 mag elves. Confused by their aggression, he's about to question them when Drusy charges in, decapitating one of them with a blade forged from her spirit power. The surviving elf screams her name, Panis. Sorry, no, we're sticking with Drusy. The enraged night elf rushes at Drusy, but before she can reach her, Zyu's tendril slams her into a tree, leaving her coughing up blood. As Zyu turns back to assess the battlefield, he notices a group of druids and sends out his tendrils, wiping them out effortlessly. Meanwhile, Dressy carves a path of destruction through the enemy ranks, slicing through her foes with brutal efficiency. However, as three enemies charge at Dressy, Ziyu realizes something horrifying. Her children. Panic surges through him as he yells for Dressy to stop, but she doesn't seem to hear him. Time slows as Ziyu watches her blade descend, helpless to intervene before it's too late. As Dressy's blade cuts through the children's necks with unsettling ease, their severed heads bounce away at speeds that defy physics. For a moment, Ziyu's heart stops, but before panic can set in, Dressy casually reveals that they weren't children at all, just druids using transfiguration to disguise themselves. Well, that's one way to avoid a moral crisis. Relief gets slightly rattled. Ziyu accepts her explanation. It now makes sense why Dressy's village was decimated and why she barely escaped with her life. As he observes her carefully, Dressy uncovers a hiding spot, revealing two young druids. Tears well in her eyes as she embraces them, overwhelmed by relief that they survived. For the first time, Ziyu truly understands the urgency that drove her. A short while later, Ziyu and Dressy discuss the dire situation. The Elf King has seized most of the Druid tribe's territory, forcing surrendered Druids to fight against their own. Dressy's village, despite its neutrality, was overrun in the chaos. Injured and desperate, she fled, and that's when she crossed paths with Ziyu. But now, she insists they go their separate ways, not wanting to involve him further. Hold up, this is the first S-tier ally we've had in ages. No way we're letting her walk out of the plot, rather than argue. Ziyu asks what she plans to do next, especially with the younger druids in such fragile states. When Dressy hesitates, he opens a large void tier. Much to her shock, he calmly tells her that she's already his apostle and invites her to step through, promising safety and recovery for her and her kin in his tree world. Seeing her lingering doubt, Ziyu urges her to hurry before his energy draws unwanted attention from the planet's heavy hitters. Dressy, finally realizing Ziyu is far more powerful than he let on, agrees. But when she notices the unconscious night elf Ziyu brought along, her expression darkens. Before Ziyu can explain that the elf was spared for questioning, Dressy decapitates her without hesitation. Enraged, Ziyu demands an explanation. Dressy, unfazed, explains that night elves must never be allowed to faint or fall asleep. If they do, the god of dreams can use their senses to spy on others. Without elaborating further, she urges Ziyu to escape immediately. Elsewhere, deep within the green planet's natural structures, a lone eye slowly cracks open, radiating an ominous presence. Back with Ziyu, he and Dressy soar across the sky. Her druid transfiguration skill allowing her to take the form of a bird. As they race through the air, she explains the planet's complex history. Three gods, the god of dreams, the god of nature, and the god of war, once maintained balance, but everything changed when hundreds of red creatures descended from the sky and seized control. Ziyu, now deeply intrigued, carves a replica of Sino's and asks if the invaders look like that. When Dressy confirms, he explains that he's fought these creatures before. Internally, however, he's panicking. The blood bugs weren't supposed to be here, too. Unaware of Ziyu's turmoil, Dressy continues, the blood bugs infiltrated the great tribes, unifying major factions like the elf tribe under their control and initiating continuous wars. As she speaks, Ziyu's mind races. While his tree world advent skill hides his presence for now, any mistake could bring the blood bugs swarming. Worse, the barrier surrounding the planet might be their creation designed to prevent stronger beings from entering. Despite the grim circumstances, you can't help but feel a twinge of excitement, because apparently existential threats are his idea of fun. Meanwhile, atop a misty mountain, a sentient tree looms over its gathered followers, a mix of beasts and humanoid beings. It's almost like someone copy-pasted Ziyu's whole aesthetic as the ancient tree of life speaks. His underlings bow in reverence. Above them all, gathers its underlings and announces their plan. They're leaving this planet to invade Earth. With the elf tribe leading the charge, their forces will set out in a month as soon as preparations are complete. Great, as if Earth didn't already have enough problems. Meanwhile, deep within the forests of this world, Yuzu rests in the middle of a serene lake, his form still reverted to remain inconspicuous. It's here that he suddenly receives a system notification, a new ability, a ray of stars. Though surprised by this development, Zyu wastes no time answering the system's prompt to spend 40 million evolution points to activate the skill. So much for the cautious guy from half a chapter ago. As soon as he does, a blue aura expands around him, slowly growing until it envelops a massive section of the surrounding forest. In the distance, the giant beast notices the strange dome and roars in defiance. Big mistake. The array activates instantly, firing dozens of lasers that shred the creature to bits. The beams don't stop there, tearing through a whole mountain range as if to make a point. Witnessing this, Zyu is amazed. Not only does the array contain immense spiritual energy, but it's also increasing his own spirit power with every second he stays within it. If I could place this array around Earth, Zyu muses, we have a counterattack that would catch the blood bugs completely off guard. Unfortunately, his current spirit power isn't enough to fuel something that massive. For now, he decides to place it within the 9 great dimensions, allowing their endless spirit energy to expand the array's influence and strengthen them over time. Sometime later, Dressy is out hunting magic beasts in the nearby forest, dutifully collecting crystals per Zyu's vague orders. Growing restless from her master's lack of movement over the past months, she grumbles internally about his apparent inactivity. Just as she finishes the thought, a sudden eruption of golden light catches her attention, and she rushes toward its source. There she finds Zyu in a new form, or at least new to her. He's back to the transcendent third order, radiating strength and authority. Dressy, unable to contain her excitement, greets him warmly and even notices the palpable increase in his power. When she asks, Zyu explains that he's now at the early stage of transcendent third order. Their conversation takes a sudden shift as Dressy proudly shows off her haul of magic crystals from the past month. Even Zyu is impressed by the sheer quantity. Picking one up, he notices a peculiar marking on its surface and decides to pour some spirit power into it. Instantly, he's rewarded with a face full of fire. Note to self, not every glowing thing is friendly. After cooling off, Zyu tests the crystals further, channeling power into a wind crystal and a thunder crystal. Each one unleashes immense waves of elemental energy, leaving even Zyu astonished by their utility. Meanwhile, Dressy looks on, completely dumbfounded. The most she's ever used magic crystals for starting a fire or fanning herself. Yeah, that might just be a skill issue. As Zyu marvels at the possibilities, he picks up another crystal with an array-like marking. A curious idea forms in his mind. What would happen if he followed the markings and created an array based on them? With the potential of these crystals far from fully explored, Zyu's intrigue only grows as he considers the vast opportunities they hold. By carefully following the markings on the flame crystal, Zyu successfully creates a massive array of flames, surrounding himself with waves of protective fire. Overjoyed with his discovery, he realizes the potential for even more powerful arrays with greater variety, as long as he deepens his understanding. Unintentionally, however, the blazing beacon he's created acts like a giant neon sign for anyone looking to destroy him. Caution, never heard of her. Meanwhile, back on Zyu's mood base, the R&D department works tirelessly on the project left by their leader. Yule, fully strapped into their machine, acts as a stabilizer for the intense energy waves flowing through it. With his unyielding willpower, the latest experiment succeeds, resulting in a fully stable wormhole. Unfortunately, their celebration is short-lived as alarms suddenly blare throughout the base. Honored, unsuspecting citizens are left baffled and terrified as crimson portals begin appearing in the skies. Back on the green planet, Zyu Whether they found him or are merely investigating the array is unclear. However, Zyu is immediately struck by the spirit power of the lead elf, eerily similar to the Venusian Mew. Deciding to interrogate this elf, Zyu activates his darkness domain, trapping the group and nullifying their senses. This effectively prevents even the god of dreams from spying on him through their unconscious forms. Within the safety of the domain, Zyu hits the lead elf with a blood pact, forcing him to answer. The elf reveals they were only investigating the anomaly. When pressed on why his spirit power reeks of the Venusian Mew, he explains it's the power granted by their master to carry out his plan. Zyu's eyes narrow, his voice cutting through the dark. What plan? Meanwhile, back on Earth, news reports flood in as the first beings step through the crimson portals. It's the elf tribe from the green planet, their ranks brimming with warriors no weaker than transcendent Fourth Order. As a reporter broadcasts their arrival, she pieces together that these glowing openings are portals to another world. Her revelation is cut short when the elves' neutral expressions shift into cruel smirks, promising devastation. Back on the green planet, the elf within Zyu's grasp drops a bombshell. The army meant to invade Earth was sent months ago. By all calculations, they should already be there. Furious, Zyu demands to know their numbers. The elf confesses that over 100 of his kin were sent, including 10 transcendent Fourth Orders, who serve as the most honorable priests of their tribe. Cut to Earth, where honor seems to be in short supply. The invading elves unleash chaos, their leader gleefully brandishing the severed heads of innocent civilians. Yeah, real honorable bunch we've got here. Truly the pinnacle of moral integrity. The elves' invasion has begun, and with no one prepared for their sudden assault, they unleash unspeakable cruelty on the unsuspecting humans. From ripping heads off with brute strength to bringing entire buildings crashing down, they treat their massacre like a twisted game. However, their spree comes to an abrupt halt when the one human capable of standing up to them arrives. Floating above the devastated city like a wrathful avenger, Yule surveys the carnage. The brutalized corpses, severed heads, and tortured bodies stir an unimaginable fury within him. Yet, he remains composed. Unfortunately for the elves, they mistake this calm for weakness. One steps forward with a smug grin and fires an arrow at Yule. That grin vanishes instantly when the arrow is obliterated mid-flight by a massive metal beam, hurled with enough force to impale the elf who shot it. The shock quickly sobers the rest of the elves, but it's far too late for them now. Harnessing his rage, Yule pulls every scrap of matter in the city toward him. With no innocence left to protect, his powers of magnetism, amplified by his wrath, are unleashed with devastating precision. He spears to make the elves suffer until death feels like a mercy. Yule is cooking, and the menu is revenge. But before we can witness the full extent of Yule's rampage, the scene shifts back to Zyu interrogating the elf. Damn it, just when it was getting good. Surprisingly, Zyu remains unfazed by the news of the elves already invading Earth. Instead, he focuses on their future plans. The elf, under the influence of the blood pact, reveals a grim truth. In 6 months, all the forces of this world, beasts, dwarves, dragons, elves, and even druids will mobilize to raise Earth to the ground and present it to the great emperor. Zyu curses his luck, realizing just how far gone this world's factions are. Resolving to show no mercy, he decides that anyone who opposes him will die, while those with potential will become his apostles. As for these elves, they'll serve as his puppets. Alright, so sorry, take it easy. Outside the darkness domain, Drusy waits nervously, wondering if everything is alright. When Zyu finally emerges, he announces that they're heading to a new location. Despite her surprise, Drusy accepts and follows him without question. Meanwhile, Zyu is already planning his next move, changing his appearance and spirit power to avoid detection. To do this, he heads to the weak point of the world's barrier where his void root connects to his main body. He knows what's coming is going to hurt like hell, but there's no alternative. this instant agony. Yu's scream echoes across the forest, and no, it definitely doesn't sound like a little girl's. Alright, maybe just a little. His main body in the void goes dormant, and though the pain feels like 1,000 needles stabbing him simultaneously, he has no time to waste. Drusy watches from a safe distance as Yu's form begins to shift and shrink. Slowly, he transforms into a humanoid figure resembling a dark elf. Unbeknownst to him, Drusy is absolutely crushing on his new look. I've seen enough shows to know where this is going. Despite being stuck as the transcendent Third Order in this form, Yu summons the Sea Beast King's body from the void, the source of absolute evolution. The Sea Beast King has been little more than a walking corpse since its consciousness was erased, but now, its time has come to fulfill its role. In the heart of the Elves' domain on the Green Planet, the Queen rages at a trembling messenger. He delivers grim news. Not only did the team investigating the strange energy signature fail to return, but the surrounding land has been utterly decimated. Her response, she orders more elves to keep searching, showing zero concern for her missing soldiers. Great leadership, truly inspiring. Before the Queen can finish venting her fury, another messenger arrives with even worse news. The life stones signaling the vitality of all the priests who poured to earth have dimmed, meaning every single one of them is dead. Her frustration boils over, but there's no time to mourn, not that she seems the type to mourn anyone. Back on Earth, the ruined city that served as the Elves' playground has now become their graveyard. Among the carnage stands Yule, surrounded by the broken bodies of his enemies, crushing the last elf's skull in his iron grip. He leaves nothing but a mangled stump behind. The sole surviving elf, enraged and desperate, unleashes a surge of power that transforms him into a massive beast. Yule, unimpressed, mocks the elf's new form, knowing he still holds the upper hand. Fueled by fury, the hulking elf lashes out with a punch that kicks up a storm of debris. Yet, as the dust clears, Yule stands unharmed, having used his powers to block the attack with debris of his own. Deciding to show the elf how it's done, Yule slams an entire building into the invader, toppling it like a house of cards. But he doesn't stop there. With grim determination, he lifts multiple buildings and sends them crashing down in succession, intent on reducing the elf to a bloody smear. To his shock, the elf survives, rising once more in defiance. Then, in a desperate gambit, the elf gathers a sphere of spirit power in its palm. Instead of attacking Yule, it hurls the energy into the sky, opening a portal. Emerging from the rift is a nightmarish creature, towering over the already giant elf. Its grotesque form, complete with a single black eye and pointed ears, grows even more monstrous as it devours the elf with multiple tongues. As it transforms, countless eyes sprout across his bloated body, radiating malevolent energy. Yule watches in disgust as he realizes the creature's horrifying intent, a self-destruction that will annihilate the entire city and everyone left in it. Though most of the city is already a graveyard, Yule senses a handful of survivors too weak to escape. He charges at the monstrosity, but it's already too late. The countdown begins, and the sphere of power expands into a massive dome, seconds from collapsing in a catastrophic explosion. At the critical moment, a new figure joins the fray. Ninetales arrives, her spiritual seal containing the elf monster's detonation just in time. Furious, the creature roars at her, demanding to know what she's done. Calmly, Ninetales explains that she's sealed all the spirit energy around him, preventing it from spreading beyond his vicinity. Powerless, the creature can only spew curses as it self-destructs, taking nothing with it but the worms in the ground. With the last invader eliminated, Yule turns to thank Ninetales, only to see Ling Hua standing beside her. Before he can comment, Ling Hua instructs him to collect the elves' corpses so she can use them to track their base. Meanwhile, back on the Green Planet, Drusy flies in her bird form alongside Yuzu, curious about their destination.